Hello again, everyone. I'm Dr. George Simon, and welcome to another edition of the New Character Matters program. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we've faced for several decades now, and that affects every single aspect of our lives, especially our intimate relationships. And today I'd like to continue a discussion about the nature of real love, because nothing is more important than a healthy, intimate relationship than the capacity for real love. But a person can possess many different qualities that can seem like a capacity for real love, qualities that can hurt a person at the outset of a relationship, but are always destined to fade in time and always destined to leave the person hungry for a truly intimate, fulfilling relationship, feeling disappointed, depressed, maybe even abused or exploited. So I'd like to talk about a few of those things that masquerade for love at the outset of a relationship. And I've written about all of these things in numerous articles on my blog at drgeorgesimon.com. So you can go there, avail yourself of the many articles on amicability, a wonderful trait. There are likable people among us, but amicability, the ability to get along with folks, is not in itself a virtuous character trait and does not bespeak necessarily the capacity to love. I've also written about charm and the capacity of some folks to be quite charming in the manner in which they relate. Sometimes charm should sound an alarm, because sometimes people use their natural gift of charm to manipulate, to seduce, with the intention of exploiting in a relationship. You don't know this at the outset, but in our day and time, you need to be wary. And there are other qualities too, all of which can make it appear that a person has the capacity for genuine love and would make a good and faithful relationship partner. Soundness of character involves much more than that. And as I mentioned earlier, you can read the many articles I have on these topics on my blog at drgeorgesimon.com. You can also read about them in all my books, especially my most recent book, Essentials for the Journey. But as I mentioned earlier, today I'd like to focus on two types of individuals. They are relatively benign narcissists, as narcissists go, generally speaking. Of course, there are always exceptions to the rule. Now, it's worth mentioning again, not all narcissism is the same. Narcissism is a spectrum phenomenon like all character disturbance, and it varies as to type and degree. Now, there's no such thing as a healthy narcissist, but some narcissists are much more dangerous than others. And so the narcissism involved in some of the characters I'm talking about today is problematic, to be sure. These are not the most toxic narcissists that you'll encounter, which is one of the ways you're so easily deceived. But these folks can appear at the outset of a relationship to be the ideal potential partner, but unless there's more to them, which there often is not, you'll be lucky to get out of a relationship with them unscathed. And the two types that I'd like to talk about, and that I have written a couple of articles about, are the emotional Romeo, the classic thief of hearts, and the ego massage artist. This is the person that seduces with flattery and all kinds of positive affirmation makes you feel good about yourself. So let's talk about these two types for just a bit. The emotional Romeo. This is the person who can make it appear as if it's all about you, when in fact, underneath it all, it's really all about them. The emotional Romeo wants your heart, but they don't want to pay a legitimate price for it. In other words, they don't want to earn a place in your heart by truly treating you well and caring for you and your interests throughout all the difficult times, the inevitable ups and downs of a relationship. They will use their skills to invite you to surrender your heart without demanding much proof on their part of their worthiness. Why these folks are sometimes called the classic thief of hearts is because that's just what they do. They steal as opposed to earn legitimately. They don't want to pay a legitimate price. So they may use charm, flattery, or their skills to woo you and win you over. Now, there's nothing particularly awful about any of that. But serious emotional Romeos have an agenda. Winning your heart is a badge of honor for them. For this kind of narcissist, it makes them feel good about themselves. So even though they're busily making you think that it's all about you, in fact, it's all about them, and you will eventually find that out in the relationship. It will become clear that you have a role, and that role is not a partner to love and cherish forever. For some emotional Romeos, winning your heart, stealing your heart, is a conquest of sorts, much like individuals predisposed to sexual conquests do. But it's different. They just want to know that they have gotten you to think well of them, maybe even to idolize them. Sometimes this can be rooted in a lack of healthy self-esteem, where they just want constant ego building, but other times it can be rooted in some grandiosity where it only matters to them that one other person becomes a fan. Emotional Romeos often seem relatively benign, and they can be relatively benign. But the heart of a thief is always the same, and inevitably you're likely to suffer in a relationship because, as I mentioned earlier, even though they make it seem like it's all about you, the bottom line is that it's really all about them. And winning either your affection or your affirmation or your positive regard of them. Emotional Romeos are often astute when it comes to reading your deepest emotional needs. And they know how to, at least on the surface, appear to attend to those needs. But there's always that hidden agenda. The prize is your heart. And as I mentioned earlier, the difference between a thief and a person of truly good character is they want it for an unfair price. They want it for the price of an intoxicating smile, an affirming look, a flattering remark, as opposed to true commitment to your welfare for a lifetime. unconditionally. Many times, emotional Romeos are very astute at discerning your deepest emotional wants and needs, so they know the way into your heart. Unfortunately, in our character disturbed times, it's very incumbent upon all of us to do sufficient vetting of the character of a potential relationship partner to discern whether or not they really merit access to the heart. These days, especially, you have to know a person's relationship history, and you have to be able to judge just exactly what core values the person holds and how committed they are to upholding those values in the way that they conduct their affairs, especially their interpersonal affairs, and most especially how they conduct themselves in intimate relationships. Most of the time, unfortunately, we find out all these things far too late, which is why so many relationships fall apart or end up causing so much heartache. Now, many times the thief of hearts or the emotional Romeo is also a skilled ego massage artist. These are the folks that know how to pour on the praise, who know how to say all the affirming words. And many times, because they tend to be narcissistic, the very thing that they see in you that they want to laud is a quality that they themselves believe that they possess. So really, what they're affirming in you is not some laudable quality of your own, but rather something of themselves that they see in you. Now, that's not always the case, but that can be the case. In any case, there is method to the ego massage. By building you up, and by being the source of building you up, they hope to win your heart. But there's a big difference between affirming words and even affirming actions and truly loving actions, self-sacrificing actions, actions that put your welfare at the forefront. Now, healthy love, while self-sacrificing, is not self-deprecating or self-denying. You can't properly wish well for and do well by others unless you know how to do the same for yourself. So proper regard for another is not bending over backwards with self-denial and to so overly attend to the needs of another that you hurt yourself in the process. That's not love. And in a healthy, intimate relationship, it's more like a genuinely, positively regarding walk together. Not carrying the other person and not lying down yourself, but walking together in a mutually supportive, positively regarding way, wanting nothing but the best for oneself and for the other, and working toward those ends. In essence, real love involves work. The thief of hearts would rather take, with a smile, a glance, words of flattery, a momentary display of kindness, and the emotional Romeo would rather use positive strokes. All of this is relatively easy. Walking with another in generous and true regard is a whole different matter. It requires character, and character takes time to forge. It takes effort to forge, and it takes both an understanding of and a commitment to the timeless principles that I outline in my book, Essentials for the Journey, that I call the 10 Commandments of Good Character. These matters seem to have been forgotten, but they couldn't possibly be more important. They're crucial to any healthy relationship. And there are so many broken relationships these days. All of our affairs are characterized by self-serving, impulsive, egocentric, grandiose, you name it, actions that have negatively impacted every aspect of our lives. From our intimate relationships to our family affairs, to our community affairs, our political affairs, our international affairs. We are a largely broken society, full of dysfunctional relationships all the way around, because we have lost sight of the elements of good character and all that it takes to forge it. If we're to be healthy and whole once again, we must come to expect it and in some cases demand it. Character, that is. And we must also reclaim our understanding of just what makes for good character and how to help instill it in ourselves and in one another, how to foster it, how to reward it, how to make it cool again, how to make it important again. Our livelihood, our emotional well-being, our mental health, and our spiritual peace all depend upon it. And so I'll keep talking about it time after time in my articles on the blog at drgeorgesimon.com, in all my books and all my other writings, and on the next edition of the new Character Matters. So until then, I'm Dr. George Simon. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.